John shared he created a trailer for the event, so I'm going to share that now, and then we'll start the session.
G'day, John Millam from Kintsugi Heroes, and welcome to Beyond the Deluge. There are some encounters in life that no amount of preparation, planning, and past experience will equip us to deal with when they hit. On the 6th of July 2022, the rivers and streams outside of Wollombi broke and other villages in the Hunter Valley, New South Wales, flowed over the banks, and the small towns were flooded and devastation was left in the water's wake. Over 300 locals, traumatised and displaced, were left without support, power and even aid for a time, while the worst flood in 70 years ravaged the place they call home. While it's not uncommon in rural Australia to face adversity, the fires of 2019 went through the same area and were devastating. And yet floods bring a special kind of awful. With the mud and stink, we feel despair. We feel the loss of our precious mementos and loved things and our sense of safety. The ongoing impact is still being managed, and so much cost and impact must also count the trauma and anxiety left behind. Yet, from this devastation, hope will find a way. And here we also find talk of heroes, of generosity and community. In this special Kintsugi Heroes limited podcast series, Beyond the Deluge, we hope to share stories of the floods, both adversity and resilience from the towns and villages. We've spoken to a group of people who have varying views and experiences, and through them, we start to capture the awful realities of coping with the deluge. And we also hear them share moments of courage, care, and wonder. I will walk with the lived experiences of these people who worked hard to overcome the dark time and are working hard to reset, restore, and rebuild their lives, their homes, and their community. It also brought back memories. For me as a child, I lived in the northwest of New South Wales, a little town called Weewar, where we went through 5 full floods in 7 years. As a kid, it was almost exciting, lots of people pitching in, yet it was also terrible and scary. I can remember vividly walking outside my home, up to my chest in water, constantly ducking out of the way of floating furniture and rubbish, and of course brown snakes. All that work and loss in the end saw my parents toss it in and head to Sydney. In these conversations, I see how hard the folks in and around Broke are working to bring this place fully back to life. Kintsugi, you may know, is the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with gold mortar. They feel like the repaired object with its scars becomes even more beautiful than the original. So while events, like the hardships of the floods, can push us to breaking, hearing the stories of spirit, of courage and restoration can help us cope, heal and come back stronger as a person and as a community. Sharing those stories is part of that gold glue. Please watch this fortnightly podcast, Kintsugi Heroes Beyond the Deluge, and please be inspired as you hear the tales from Beyond the Deluge. Thank you.
G'day. Well, that great effort, John, and thank you for John and Matt for putting that together. Patricia, could you please message Kerry? There's Kerry's just joined now. A few people have got confused with the links to the Humanitics and then also to Zoom. So I'd like to formally welcome everyone to the official launch of our Beyond the Deluge podcast series. So I'd like to start with some acknowledgements just of various organisations. And first, just to acknowledge the Wanneroo people who are the traditional custodians of the Hunter Valley region. I'd like to pay my respects to the elders past and present and extend that respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders who are present here today. I'd also like to acknowledge our partners, the Singleton Neighbourhood Centre, and in particular Sue George, who's been a great supporter of this project. There's some funding was provided by the Hunter, New England and Central Coast PHN, and also the Kintsugi Heroes team. The team has mostly volunteers around the world who contribute their time, their passion, their talents to help, as John said, help people share their overcoming adversity stories to give hope and inspiration to others. And finally, and most importantly, I'd like to thank the heroes who shared their stories. Annie Cossins, Bernadette Tolson will be sharing her story tomorrow, Karina Moonen, Carly Dawson, Dr. Rob Gordon, who's a clinical psychologist, Evelyn Hardy, Kirsty McLeod, Leith Moonen, Mick McCardle, Quinton McLeod, and Tony Hawkins. I'd like to do a couple of introductions of people who play a part in this call. First, I'm Ian Westmoreland. I'm the founder and CEO of Kintsugi Heroes. Patricia Waghorn is our comms manager, and she's also a director of Kintsugi Heroes, and she'll be helping us as people raise questions. And most of you know John Millam, who's our hosting all the conversations. Awesome guy, has his own lived experience. In fact, John was the very first Kintsugi Heroes podcast that we did. Amazing story for if you get a chance to look at that. And he'll be running training courses, and also he's a director of Kintsugi Heroes. Also like to introduce two of our heroes who'll be sharing a little bit of their story tonight. So Evelyn Hardy was the first person I met at the Festival of Small Halls, and this amazing event at Broke. So Evelyn's a well-loved local pillar of the community in Broke. Commitment to the well-being of the local community was a way of dealing with her own losses in the flood. And as secretary of the Broke Community Hall, Evelyn's played a pivotal role in helping, offering help and support to the community. Evelyn's a mum with 2 adult children and a grandmother as well, and she volunteers at the Singleton Neighbourhood Centre. In fact, it's a separate exercise. John will be running a free mentoring training course at the Singleton Neighbourhood Centre. I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. And Evelyn's also secretary of the Broke Community Hall. Mick, I hope you're okay with this picture. This has fun to send through. So Mick's, everyone talked about Mick. And in fact, he featured on ABC when I did a little bit of investigation, and quiet in the background, but absolutely a hero within the village when it came to supporting the community. Singleton Citizen of the Year in 2023 and president of the Broke Residents Community Association. And Mick's story about his own personal experience with flood, as well as sharing the story of being in charge of the operations centre at the Broke Community Hall during the flood. And a quote from Mick: because of my 30-odd years in the military, mainly overseas in operations, Mick came into the job to head up the operations centre because he knew what was involved. So I'd like to hand over to John, and John's going to have a bit of a chat to Evelyn and Mick. John, over to you.
Yeah. Hey guys, welcome to the launch of the podcast series that captures a small piece of what Broke went through. But I think it's a really good representation. You guys have really given us a real sense of what was happening for you as individuals, but also for you guys as a community. So I was so pleased to be able to spend some time with you. But I thought tonight it'd be cool to ask a couple of 3 questions, basically, just 3 questions, and then we'll let you guys off the hook, right? But the very first question, really, and if Mick, maybe I'll start with you, brother, is the idea is now that we're down the track, now that we're 2 years down the track on the whole process, as you look back, where are you on all of what you went through? Is it something that you're proud of? Is it a big thing? Is it small? Are you over? You know, what's your flood story now, 2 years down?
For me personally, I'm proud of what I did, and I'm proud of what people in the village did. It gives me a great sense of pride with the way the community came together. It's actually interesting because we had some rain here sort of the start of this month, and it's soaked into the ground up here pretty much the same as what it was doing in 2022. So, and I think that whenever we get a decent amount of rain, it puts people on a little bit of an edge,
Wow.
which a few of us, we try and sort of dissolve that in saying, well, you know, this is what it was like in 2022, this is the rain and all that. So, and it's just a matter of keeping the community together and keeping them informed and all that sort of thing.
So you feel the urge to reassure or to reach out to the community now as a consequence of what happened 2 years ago, and just say, hey, this isn't it, or wow, guys, you know, we got this under control?
Yeah, I don't think you could ever control floodwaters, but you can at least keep people informed and let them know that you know what the situation is like with regards to any future flooding that comes in the area, and you're sort of putting people's minds at ease when you do that, which is probably one of my priorities, just so you don't have people, you know, getting a lot of anxiety because they're not sure what's actually going on.
Yeah, I love that, mate. Still caring for the community 2 years on, even though you're not, you know, spending 24/7 in the broke hall. So nice work. And Evelyn, are you okay? You know, that same question 2 years on. What are your thoughts around as you look back on the flood and its impact on you and the community?
Well, 2 years on, I'm still picking up the pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah. Luckily, and I've got great news, the DA has been approved on our new house.
Excellent.
Oh, yeah.
This is a celebration, not just a launch, right? So
it is. It's unbelievable. It's been Groundhog Day forever. I just seem to, the only way I can cope with it now is to just wake up and go, ugh, okay, another day, let's forget about that, let's do something. Because it can consume you completely. You know, worrying about stuff and, you know, talking to people in council, talking to the builders, talking to, you know, stuff further lost down the track and everything. It just never stops. But I either push it aside and get on with my life, or, like I said, let it consume me. But yeah, the impact's big and it's still going on, but I've got something to look forward to. There's a new house coming and I can stretch out instead of living in a van.
That's amazing and such good news, of course.
It is.
Yeah. So I'll ask you the next question. So what did, you know, given that you you now know after nearly 2 years you can live in a van successfully for a while, but what else? What did you really discover about yourself and about the community, about Broken Area?
Well, I discovered about myself that I'm a lot stronger than I thought I ever was. And the confidence that I have in myself now to just face whatever is thrown at me, evaluate it and move on, get it done with confidence. I was not that person. I very timid. I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't put myself forward. Now I'll just go, yep, righto, let's get it done. And I think in a lot of ways, a lot of the community is like that too. They faced something that was not going to stop. Nothing they could do would stop it. They just picked themselves up and kept moving. So in a lot of cases, I think it's made people so much more resilient and stronger within themselves that they can actually face things and, you know, move on.
Beautiful. That's amazing. I was thinking as you said that, you know, you guys went through 2019 with the fire, so you were forged in fire, and now you're welded by water. So it's a pretty, you know, you should be ready for
quite
anything.
a combination.
Yeah. And Mick, you know, what did you discover about yourself in the community?
Myself, I knew I had it in me to do the job that I was asked to do during the floods, and that was fine. I think the effect of what happened, what was after the floods, and the effect during the floods, in far as seeing some of the devastation and not really like looking at stuff, and you know that you can only help for a certain extent, and then people need to help themselves. That was probably the hardest, and I remember like countless conferences and questions with council and state government, state bodies, and all that, just to push the barrow for Broke and surrounding areas. I mean, like we had people north, like there was a few in Bulga that were in the same boat, Warkworth, which came under our umbrella eventually, and so it was a big area, and trying to sort of spread resources throughout that area was, I knew we could do it. It was just a matter of putting priorities on stuff. As far as the community, I think they've come out of it a lot stronger than what they were before it. And I think the community spirit is a lot better than what it was, say, 2018, 2017, and 2019 was, it brought the community together with regards to the fires and all that. But it galvanised itself in 2022 after the floods.
Yeah, wow. And that's pretty amazing to find such positivity after such, you know, essentially, you know, drama and trauma for everyone involved. And of course, you know, we captured some stories, but there are many other amazing stories out there that we don't have on this list. And, you know, I'd love to keep, listening and capturing them. But that kind of brings me to the idea of, you know, well, what do you think the future for Broke and surrounding areas is? What are the folks in the area and also the place itself? What are your thoughts about what's coming?
I think the future is pretty bright for Broke. We're just moving ahead. People are more attuned to what happens with the weather and all that, so they're better prepared for these sort of events. And as far as the community goes, everyone enjoys everyone else, insofar as they know that, hey, I've got your back, you've got my back. If the shit hits the fan, basically. So yeah.
Yeah, amazing. And Evelyn, a slight variation on that theme. So, you know, again, looking at the future, what do you hope for the future for Broke and the surrounding areas, your place?
Well, I just hope that community remember that we are a big family. We are a family of community, and with our strength and our confidence, we'll never stop disasters like that, but we can be there for one another. And if we always remember that we are there, you know, we can face anything. And Broke has a bright future. It's always had a bright future. It can be so much brighter for just being community. And remember that we are there for each other.
That's awesome. So, guys, just one, you know, last thought. What's left for you to do? What are your great challenge, your great motivation, your inspiration that's come out of everything you've got, you know, you've had to deal with over the last couple of years?
I'll let you go, Eve.
Oh, you're
Ladies
right.
first, Ev.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm really looking forward to this house being built.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Yeah. And I think just I have a few ideas to weld community again. You know, broke us as a community. So how we can work together and you know, businesses and just the villages, and we have a bright future. And I personally would like to see it all unfold. I'm not moving. I'm not going anywhere. I don't care what nature throws at me. I said that to a journalist. She asked me, would I leave now that this has happened? And I thought, no. Broke is my home. Yeah. So thank you. My home is here, and whatever that takes to get the community to stay together and be as one, that's my future.
That's awesome. Mick, what do you reckon, mate?
My current focus is getting these EW, the early warning systems done around the area, and just so that we are more sort of secure in information that we can give out to people. Because as you know, when it floods, it normally happens at night time, and you can't see water rising at night. So it'll happen. It's been a slow process, but we'll get there. We'll get there.
Awesome. Wow, guys, I know, you know, that we powered through those questions. I would just a small personal observation, right? So when Ian and I went to the Festival of the Small Halls, it was just a lovely afternoon and evening. And one of the singers there, who was a guest, Alana Wilkinson, I followed her because she was so good. And she introduced a song today. A new song of hers came out, right? And it's called Shine Through. And I was listening to it this afternoon. She just released it today. And I have to say, it was almost like, you know, it was spooky how it sort of the song and, you know, this launch, right, which represented what I actually like associated with Broke, right, which was a community that shone through the flood, right, that, you know, put the light up there. So I just want to thank you guys, right, for, you know, for letting me in, for talking to me, for sharing such interesting and wonderful and at times emotional and painful stuff. And I have to say, it was a real privilege on my part to be a part of your experience of the floods. And yeah, I just have all the confidence in the world, right? Regardless of, I don't know what's next, right? So I'm sure you guys are in the same space, but I just want to know, whatever it is, I reckon I'd rather weather the storm in Broke than just about anywhere else. So good on you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Can I make a couple of observations? And as someone, I've never experienced a flood, I've never experienced a fire, but we're involved in a project, in fact, through Pat, who's on this call, in the Alpine area of Victoria around bushfires, and then to go to the Hunter Valley and around the flood story. And both what came out of, particularly out of Carly and Tony's story, is that in with the case of fire, often there's some action that you're busy. There's stuff you can do to prepare, and I guess it's probably in some ways better mentally because you're actually doing something. And the impression I get with the flood is it's just there's nothing you can do. You just got to the actions post flood, and that's really crappy. And it's funny, Tony, listening to your podcast last night, you said that the Wollongby Tavern, they had to throw out all the beer and wine, and John made a comment like it was in these the skip bins out the front, and he said that would have been an interesting. I assume the community would have got involved in that in some way or other, but so I don't know what happened to beer and wine that got ruined. But the second thing was that it never occurred to me that the floods come, now there's no power, and now there's no water, and well, you've got a water tank, but there's no power to run the generator. And you think in a flood of, so it's just, how do you have a shower? And then in the case of Carly, she had COVID, so she wasn't able to get to the, it's like compounding things, but it just, the spirit that came through that Evelyn and Mick have shared, this amazing people who sometimes weren't even friends before, built relationships through that. They started to see past maybe superficial stuff to the underlying goodness that's within people, and particularly within that community. So I've only seen 2 of the conversations so far, but it's just been brilliant. I'm so passionate about this. And, Pat put a comment up that it's generally the 2 to 5 year period after a traumatic event is a crucial time. But all the signs that we're seeing there, and hopefully this project that we're being all involved in will help with that. Is there any questions from the group, either through chat or just raise your hand, and Patricia will keep an eye on that.
Yeah, just while we're waiting for people to think of some questions, I actually had a little bit of a question myself. Like once the headlines have settled down and, people outside of Broken, outside the Hunter Valley, they're not hearing about the floods and everything. What would the people in Broke like to see? What sort of support would they like to see from their fellow New South Welsh people?
Oh.
It's a hard question.
It is. Look, I don't think there's a great deal that we need from outside of our community now, because we got so much support with the GoFundMe page and all that sort of stuff during or just after the floods, that it put us in a really good spot in regards to rebuilding and that. And like, I got to say, and I've said this before, and they've got awards for it, is that if we didn't have Bulga Coal here, how fast they were to get into helping us getting things done, we would have been in a lot worse situation. And Resilience New South Wales people said that they couldn't believe how fast we got onto things. Like, you got to remember that most of the village, or all the village, is on septic. So there was underlying issues with septic tanks going under. So that led to excrement and all that being flooded out into the village itself. But with Bulga Coal, they got onto the guys that come out and pump out the septics to make it safe for our health and hygiene. And yeah, talking to people that were up at Lismore and that, they said they couldn't believe how fast we got onto everything. And we were lucky that we had that support from a major company like them, which obviously flowed over to the smaller companies that work with Bulga Coal. And yeah, I think we're doing all right. There's a lot of other areas, and they've still got issues in Lismore and that. There's a lot of other areas that are still struggling big time. Yeah.
Thank you. Bernadette's got her hand up. Is that for a question, Bernadette?
An answer?
Oh, an answer. Okay, great.
Yes. So you mentioned what could be done to have the wider state country recognise, what we've been through. I feel just by looking at the number of people camping, or mostly in their very flash caravans, coming to stay in Broke in the caravan park, truly brings back life to the village for the park, and it's constantly busy, and there are a great set of people who come here and have a fun time in the park and enjoying our little village.
Yes, absolutely.
So we call this an official plug, Bernadette, right? So let everybody holiday in Broke. That's what we're saying.
Only if they behave themselves.
Good point.
We do have a question in the chat from Kerry Atherton. The question is, what supports do you have personally in place to help manage your triggers? John, I'll let you ask that of the participants.
Right, it's a great question, Kerry. Well done. The idea that the personal anxiety or impact of that can still be triggered. Mick, you mentioned the recent rains, and of course, in Sydney, they were talking about releasing the Warragamba and so on. So, what do you do, and what do you see the village doing to support that kind of anxiety that pops up?
Oh, I think, for me, it's the support of the family. Just being there for one another, and I think that goes across the whole board of the village. That family is paramount in looking after everyone. That's what I'd say.
Yeah, right. And you find your family supports you. Evelyn, I know you're tied up into not just dealing with your own situation, which is like amazingly challenging, but you're also interested in that, the broader community's trauma and the impact that has on them. So what has the community got in place to do with that?
There's different. I personally hold a cup of tea, morning cup of tea, and chat on the last Wednesday of the month, and that started out as just a fun thing to do, just to bring people together. But I have used it now as a way for me to gauge how people are coping. If there's any stress building, giving them an outlet to speak about their problems, and I can then guide them into a particular service or offer them some advice or options that they can then further get themselves some help, be it GP, women's health, men's health, whatever the case may be. I use it as a guide to gauge the community health in general. That's just one thing. Because I'm at the Neighbourhood Centre as well, that has a lot of things that can be put in place for anyone that needs financial assistance, like electricity help, women's health. There's a whole range of things that can be offered to the community in whole. So I'm sort of like a conduit to offering guidance in general.
Auntie Evelyn. So the what I find interesting though is like having conversations with people in Broke and around, whether it's on tape or not. Right, it always happened the same. Oh, you shouldn't be talking to me. I got through all right. It's the bloke down the hall that did all the amazing work. So so many people in the area don't see themselves as either sort of contributing much or suffering much, right? So how do you deal with that sort of reticence to reach out to acknowledge that stuff's going on?
I personally don't see that. I don't like admitting or I just do what I do, and I keep doing it, and I will always, someone's always worse off than me and someone's doing more. I find it hard to take any kind of, I don't know what you'd call it, but I just do, and that's how I cope. I just do stuff. I help people where I can. I guide them where I can, and I don't see that as anything special on my part.
Spoken like a true Valley resident. So,
Hey, John, Matthew has a question as well. Sorry, just to let you know that's in the queue.
Great.
Yeah, I always feel super weird about this stuff because like I've been editing a lot of the episodes. I haven't gotten to all of them yet of the recordings we've done. So I feel like any question I could potentially ask would already have been answered in a conversation that I've seen. And I find myself coming up with answers to all these questions for you all as well, because I've heard so many of the conversations that have been going on. But after listening to Kirsty and Quentin talk about stuff, because they've got the alpaca farm, and that episode will be coming up in a couple of weeks, and thinking about getting triggered by the floods, or you know, smelling the rain, and in some cases, you know, hearing certain sounds that could bring those memories straight back. The thing that they pointed out was that tourism is an extremely important part of Broke in order to keep that economy moving. And I was really glad to hear that there was a stop put on it, because you don't want looky-loos coming in and being so close to the trauma at the time, you having to revisit everything as well as sell them a bar of soap or whatever it is that you're trying to you know, bring things back to. So my question is, at the moment, is that any kind of tourism or campers that are coming in that might be aware of the floods, are they being entirely respectful of the experiences you've had? And has there been any times where you've sort of had to go, look, can we not talk about this now? It's not great for us at the moment.
Just after the floods, the council actually cordoned off the main village area, which, so basically no one coming into the village could go into that area and go rubbernecking, as I call it, to see what's going on and see what's around. You'd still get people doing it, but most were pretty respectful with you know, obeying that sort of those signs and not going through those areas, because I mean, people had their whole life sitting on the curbside in all the water damaged furniture and effects and all that. So, but yeah, most of the people were pretty good, and we there was a train of thought about with regards to tourism, and okay, how long do we stop tourists coming back in? And we said, well, no, I think it only, and Kirsty probably know more on this too, that I think it was only about a week, or no, probably about 2 weeks, that we said, all right, no tourists here, but after that we need to get back on track, because businesses need to get back on track in making money, because a lot of them employ local people. And if you went, oh no, we can't have people here, then you're cutting your own throat, essentially, because you're not allowing those businesses to operate and generate money back into the community. So yeah.
Good point, mate.
Sorry, John, I just had a message here from Kirsty. She'd like to add to that question.
Sure.
Yeah. Can you hear me, everyone?
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. I thought that really is a question, definitely for me in my experience. We had a really hard time just after everything happened. We had people trying to break down the gates the next day. We had people jumping the fences. We had people getting irate that they couldn't get their photos with the alpacas, and some of them were driving past the road blockages. For us, it was trying to get people to understand the gravity of what people were going through, and a lot of them didn't care. Some did, absolutely. A lot of people really didn't, and it really affected Quinn and I. Trying to, like, seeing the lack of compassion was just really hard. We still had people who were tourist guests during the flood coming to try and break in the front doors of the office to get food. I was pushed up against a wall in order to try and get food from me. So I think they saw it like a larger business and expected, everything to be happening, everything to be normal. And people would say, "You okay?" And it was very difficult to answer that at that time, because we were still dealing with the loss of the stock that we had, like our livestock, our animals, our friends' things. And we still had so many people on site that we were supporting. The last thing we really wanted to think about was, trade for some time. And we held as long as, I think we were one of the longer businesses holding on as long as we could to be the most respectful we could be in opening. And it was when the community sort of said to us that we all need to starting to build again. And that's when we thought, all right, well, we're with you. And it was a very delicate dance to find that time. And every guest that came through, we made sure they said, please don't drive through town. Please respect our community. Please, if you want to come to the businesses and support, fabulous. This is the time we need you, but please do so in the right spirit.
Yeah.
That was our experience.
That's thank you. Some great points there, guys. Thank you, Kirsty, for sharing that. That must have been tough. Interesting, almost all this lived experience, like it's wonderful to capture there, right? Because at some point, some other town are going to struggle with some of the similar issues. So hopefully what you guys have gone through can, help another town sort of understand what they're going through.
Hey, John, we have another question from Miff Webster. Has the community centre become more important since the floods? If so, in what way?
Great question, Miff. Yeah, so Mick, you being the, I think they built a statue of you there, haven't they? Right?
No.
Oh, no.
Everyone could probably answer this one about the community centre, I reckon.
Yes, the hall. It's become quite the little hub. Like we have our cup of tea, we have karate, we have all the meetings. Anyone who wants a meeting just comes to the hall, whatever. This not last week, but the 2 weeks prior were back-to-back events, weddings. We have council meetings, like council events. We had land care. With everything. Anyone and everything is booking the hall to have their events or all sorts of things. We've got a wedding coming up this weekend. We have a wedding in July. We have the Bog Coal barbecue coming up next week. So yes, the community hall is a very important place, and if anything's going to happen, it's going to happen there. As far as a community meeting or event, it's become very important to the community.
So is it a place of refuge now? Has they got that energy?
Yes, well, we're very lucky. I'm not sure when the work's going to start, but it will be starting soon. The hall's getting a bit of a facelift. And one thing that became very clear through the floods, when it was an evacuation centre on the night of the flood, and then the days and a couple of weeks afterwards, there are no showers and there was no laundry. And there was all sorts of things that could have been, if we had them, would have been gratefully used, I tell you. But the facelift is we're getting a new supper room, we're getting a shower and accessible toilets, all the toilets being done up, we're getting a laundry. We're having it set up so that we can have conferences there. We've got a great sound system. So, and we aren't getting the veranda, unfortunately, but money only goes so far. Yeah, it is. I think if I had to call everyone to the hall as an evacuation centre or a meeting to happen to inform people about something that may be going on, it's definitely looked at as far as a centre that people can rely on.
Nice.
John, we have another question from Ian. He asks, have all the lessons been understood, accepted and being progressed? RFS versus SES, adjusting flood markers, sorting out the insurance companies.
Yeah, look, I'm working in conjunction with the RFS with regards to flood markers, because at the moment there's no flood markers where there should be flood markers.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the southern end of Broke, where it's one of the earliest places that floods. And then you can't get people from down that area into Broke itself. So we're insurance companies, I don't want to even go there, because the insurance companies are strange. And a lot of them, what would you say, Ev? Probably 80-60% did the right thing by people?
I think so. Me personally, I couldn't fault our insurance company. They were amazing, absolutely amazing. They helped me in any way I asked. But having said that, same insurance company for a family down the road, not so good. So I really don't know what to make of them. They're inconsistent. They really are. I have a friend who, like me, is out of her house. It took only till very recently for her to get any kind of answers and to be able to move forward. Cannot understand why that happened. So as far as insurance companies, I don't know what to make of them. I really don't. They're not consistent. They're not very compassionate, and I don't ever really want to have to deal with them again, even though I had a positive experience. I looked at some people and they're not insured now, put it that way.
So you got to remember too that a lot of people in Broke didn't have flood insurance because of the high cost of the premium.
Oh.
I mean, you're talking $10,000 to $15,000 a year just in flood insurance.
Yeah.
But yeah, like with regards to working, we're working with RFS, we're working with council to get things like flood markers done, the early warning systems done, to make it as safe or as make it an informed area that people don't go through floodwaters, because they can see on the markers that it's 1.5 meters above the road. So probably not a good idea to take my little car through, and it's probably going to get shifted off the road. So, but yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah.
Just in the chat, I'll point out Tony Hawkins has a comment about Wollonbai had the same issue with flood markers. Cessnock Council has recently installed markers and remote controlled warning system signs that the main road may be flooded. Tony, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that or.
Yeah, I'm not sure where that came from. Obviously, council saw the need, and as I say, they recently installed all these. Well, what they've put, if anyone knows the area at Millfield, and then down to the south of Laguna, these remote controlled solar signs that flashing lights that the road may be flooded, which is great. Something we didn't even ask for. So, yeah,
Fabulous.
and improving a lot of the crossings on some of the side roads, which again is great. I'm sure that came out of resilience funding. Yeah, being put to good use.
And of course, the infrastructure works. When the evacuation order goes through and it's about 30 minutes too late for anyone to leave, that's that's probably an area to look at sometime.
Yeah, I'm interested in the early.
The SES is pretty much
as well
looking at that.
Yeah.
So if we go off on a tangent, we've got time. What are you planning? What's the plan for the early warning system? What would you like to see?
For those that don't know, where Broke is from Wollongby, there is a bomb weather system or weather flood machine or instrument there that measures the water that's there. But the problem is, from where that one is, just sort of north of Wollongby to actually Broke, there's the catchment area, there's another 7 estuaries that feed into that. And that was one of the biggest problems, that we got a lot of flood water through that, as well as down south of Laguna and all that, and down there. So we're trying to capture it from Broke and probably about 2 k's south of Broke, so we get a good idea of what's coming. And hopefully that with the early warning system, we'll be able to do that without any problems. And that way it gives SES, RFS notification of what the waters are doing. So the other thing was that in 2022, we called it was a perfect storm in the fact that we had all this water coming through the brook, but also there was water coming around the east side of Broke through Yellow Rock Creek, and it actually came into the village before Wollongby Brook flowed over the road and went into the village that way. So yeah, we've got a few areas that we've got to sort of keep a watch on, and hopefully with these early warning systems we'll be able to do it.
Absolutely. And I saw Tony put a note in the chat about his grandmother's wisdom, which I agree, flood rain. I love that idea. And my grandfather used to say, there's nothing wrong with making a mistake, just don't make a habit of making the same one again, right? So I think that really does summarize what you're talking about. So, Ian.
Yeah, Pat put a comment in there. So just M-Plan, does everyone know what M-Plan is? And is that emergency plan, I assume? Pat?
Yeah, it's the emergency management plan. Working a few comments. The community centre, it doesn't matter what the disaster is. My experience over the last 20 odd years is that when there is an emergency, people gravitate towards the community centre, the neighbourhood house. Even though in some cases local governments try to put people into places of last resort or whatever, doesn't matter. People always gravitate towards the neighbourhood centre or the neighbourhood house. The emergency management plan, yeah, is the M plan in up here. You can do stuff to prepare, because I'm actually doing something with somebody in Newcastle. I can't say what it is at the moment, but again, it's like getting together and trying to work how you can prepare for the next situation, because there is going to be more of them. If you look at all the planning forecasts, all the forecasts that are out there. Yeah, no, the only language government talks, and this is when you're getting money out of them for funding purposes, is through the emergency management planning system. And there's a heck of a lot of them, because there was a national grant that was just opened earlier in this year. And you're going to have, look, you've got different overlays. You've got the local council, you've got the area, you've got the state, you've got the national, everybody's at it. And it's a bit confusing, but if you want change to happen or influence, and the neighbourhood houses can play a big role in this, is to get yourself in the M plan somewhere.
Right.
I think that's a great advice, Pat. And it's interesting too, because when you're looking to put the second story on the Broke Hall, that'll be a good opportunity.
And the moat around it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're on time, so I just want to finish off with a couple of things. First off, the book launch, and so we've got Patty here in New Zealand, who's all the stories recorded so far have been edited and proofread. So the book launch will be at Starline Alpaca. So I want a huge thank you to Kirsty and Quinton for sharing this story, and B, for supporting this project. And so it'll be a dinner event there. It'll be the 2nd year anniversary. of the floods, and the books will be distributed for free within the community. So we'll just progress the planning for that. I mentioned before, Evelyn raised that there's some men in the area who would benefit from having, we provide free mentor training. And so that details are going to be finalised, would be in June or July. And if anything that we've talked about this evening has triggered anything, please Lifeline 13 11 14. I'll put John's number and my number down below if you want to contact us. Early days. This is just a draft that our amazing volunteer designer has done for the flood stories. So that could change. That she only sent that through yesterday. So I just want to thank everyone for supporting the project, for coming along tonight, for the vulnerability, for the wisdom, and for sharing. Thank you very much. I'm looking forward to seeing as many of you as possible on the 4th of July at Starline Alpacas.
Thank you.
Good on you guys. Keep up the great work.